This tale begins as the dead refuse to rest. In a quiet village in Sweden, a family unearthed the truth from the cold ground, suspecting that their loved one, their dearly departed, had not succumbed to natural causes. Yes, dear Macabre pals, let's turn the clock around and go back to 1865 to a small cemetery in the heart of Sweden. The whispers of suspicion hang heavy as the grave is being exhumed. Inside lies the body of a Mr. Lysén, and his family members completely stand against all the paperwork that says that he succumbed, he was shuffled off this mortal coil by any kind of natural circumstances, and their suspicions would be proven correct. The autopsy on the already demised man reveals arsenic, left very little room for doubt. But who would commit such an act, and why? To answer these questions, we have to travel even further back to 1803, the year a man called Anders Lindbäck was born, and he was born to a very impoverished family. So his childhood was marked by much hardship and humiliation. He was bullied a lot. One of the things that they called him was Skink-Anders. Skinka means ham, and this came from the fact that his father had once been caught trying to steal some pork. So yeah, there's that. But beyond this, Anders seemed to be quite a smart, intellectual. He was quick to learn. So his uncle actually set him up to go to a good school. Sponsored him, if you will. In this school, he excelled, and he quickly chose the path of priesthood. Well, he wanted to become a priest, a clergyman, something like that. And that was the road he was on now. And of course, if we skip a bit forward again, by his 20s, he had become a priest. A position of power and reverence, but beneath his holy exterior lurked a man who craved not only salvation but also status. During his early years working as, well, before he became a priest, then he was like a priest assistant. And during that time, he was lodging at a farmhouse. That farmhouse had a daughter who was kind of the same age as Anders. Anders was seen as a very charismatic and maybe even handsome man, because he had some talk about the town that he had one or two ladies on his beck and call. And the daughter of the family where he lodged, named Johanna, falls hopelessly in love with Anders. Her advances was rebuked though, because Anders got his eyes fixed on a different woman, a woman called Fredrika, and she was a few years older and of better standing. So Joanna was left heartbroken. She never really removed Anders though from her heart, because once her own father demised and she inherited the farm, she actually sold it to Anders and his wife Fredrika under the condition that she herself, Johanna, would be able to live there for the entirety of her own life. And this is where the cracks in Anders' otherwise polished exterior started to show. Gossip of course, everyone loves a bit of gossip, especially back in those days when you can't just put on some YouTube or whatever and find gossip. You had to find it within your own little world. And the gossip went as thus, that Anders was living now with his legal wife but also his mistress in a house together. Not very priestly, not at all. As they continued their weird little life there on the farm, Anders finally became a vicar. And that was in the year of 1861, and he became the vicar of a small parish called Silbodal. And that was a community that struggled immensely with poverty. Anders, though, he had high hopes, and he set out to create some kind of utopia of Silbodal. He was very respected and well loved there because he would go and feed the hungry, give them clothes, and even established an open library where the inhabitants of Silbodal could go and read not only religious books but all kinds of books. For some time, his efforts seemed to succeed, but there was one big problem still left: the poor people themselves. You see, during this time, this age, a vicar's income was tied to the wealth of its parishioners. Yeah, that's a hard word. Either way, Silbodal housed over 40 very impoverished people, and much of the church's riches and money had to be given out to them in handouts. The destitution of Silbodal drained both the churches and Anders' coffers and patience. To Anders, the impoverished were only a huge burden to not only the parish but to his own wallet, and Anders was indeed a man who knew how to remove obstacles. Anders came up with a brilliant plan to remove these impoverished people. Seems about right for a corrupt clergyman. Either way, in 1864 he put his wicked plan in motion. And what was that? Disguising his intentions as acts of kindness, he would visit the sick and destitute and offer communion to them personally in their homes. But the communion wine was actually spiked, laced with poison arsenic. He would give it to the poor person lying there in their bed, and he would talk to them about the afterlife, salvation, and heavenly peace, and how their suffering soon would come to an end. An avalanche of illness just enveloped Silbodal, but people did not really connect one and one there, because the people who got sick, they were already very poor and often sick and had lived very tough lives, already heavily weakened. One of these known victims was a woman named Karin. And the crazy part about her as a victim was that Anders actually went after her son too and tried to poison him 5 times. This son was named Daniel, and he survived all 5 attempts. He just got very, very ill, as many others started getting. Another man called Nils also quickly succumbed to these private communion sessions. Anders' carefully constructed world begins to unravel though after a while, as it usually does. An old friend of his called Mr. Lysén arrives for a little visit. He was wealthy and, by all accounts, in good health, and he had only come there seeking rest and some companionship, like a little vacation. Yet within days of arriving, he became violently ill. So much so that one day Fredrika went into his room and found him quite demised. Lysén's sudden denial of life raises suspicions among many people, especially since Anders arranges his funeral super quickly and does not even notify Lysén's family about it, even though he had contact information and everything. He just went ahead and buried him. And when Lysén's family finally find out about all this, they demand an investigation. And during this little investigation, they also uncover the fact that Mr. Lysén had borrowed Anders a large sum of money, which of course Anders would not need to pay back anymore. And this takes us back to the beginning, when Lysén's body is being exhumed and the arsenic in his body found. Everything pointing at foul play. Investigators begin to uncover a horrifying pattern, the demise of several poor villagers that bared the same signs. And when they were dug up, of course, they were also filled with arsenic, and Anders' secret was well and truly out. Confronted with the evidence, Anders actually confesses. But here's the catch. He insisted that all of this was just mercy departures. These poor souls, he claimed, were suffering, and he merely helped them find peace in God's embrace earlier than maybe necessary. He did it from the good of his own little Christian heart. No one was buying that, of course, and Anders was sentenced to execution. But justice was denied because before the day of the execution, he cancelled his own life subscription in his cell by denial of air supply dangling from a rope.
Shit's all fucked up. Don't forget to like and subscribe.
So yeah, what do you think? Was he a misguided savior or a self-serving sinner? Let me know your thoughts down below. I try to answer as many comments as I can. Thank you all so much for watching, and giant thanks to my lovely members here on YouTube and my Patreons. You mean the world, and it's thanks to you I'm able to do this channel. Mwah! Stay hydrated, stay amazing, and most of all, stay morbid, and I'll see you soon.